Hello everyone, my name is Cassandra. I'm from Mishki First Nation, and today I'm going to be talking about knitting and how to knit a scarf. But first and foremost, I do want to talk about the Canadian Roots Exchange. I am currently a peer in the peer program, and so I work directly with my mentor in developing professional capacities, so things for my resumes. My mentor helps me to find workshops and trainings that support any kind of professional development I have, while also providing supports on my personal capacity. So anything that I'm interested in my free time, hobbies, or things like that. For more information, go and check out the Canadian Roots Exchange website underneath the peer program. Alright, now back to the knitting. We're going to talk about the materials that you need and the techniques that you need to learn in order to make a scarf. And it's a very simple project, it's for beginners, and it's a great introduction to knitting because you start to learn about tension and rhythm and getting into that space where you want to knit something. The reason why I got into knitting was I was going through a period of grief in my life where I had lost something that was important to me, and I started to feel like I wanted to do all these very unhealthy things to kind of forget about my sadness or the loss. But I thought to myself, I don't want to go down that road of very unhealthy mechanisms or very unhealthy ways of coping. And so I tried to find something that was productive, but I could put my feelings and my energy into, and I would have something at the end of it that I would be very happy with. And so I picked up a pair of knitting needles and I started to knit without really knowing what I was going to knit. And I ended up with this really ugly, misshapen hat that was kind of pointy at the top, but then it was bigger on one side, and it really wasn't a beautiful hat. But I was really happy that I had put my energy into something, and along that way had really started to deal with the loss and the grief in a healthy way. And so knitting for me is all about the motion and the rhythm and putting your intentions into something. And so I hope that through learning how to knit a scarf, it can be a kind of tool for you to use if you're dealing with loss or you're feeling grief, and you can put that energy into something and get something at the end of it. Now that you know a little bit about why I started knitting, let's talk about the materials. So first and foremost, when we're learning how to knit, it is best to use large needles. So these are a 15 millimeter or a US 19, and you can see they're quite big, and they're only pointed at one end, so they're a 1-point knitting needle, and they're large. These are great to use because you can really see what you're doing. So when you use large needles, you're going to want to use a very chunky yarn, and so the yarn that I have for this is quite large. You can see this is chunky yarn, and this helps you to see any kind of mistakes or if you missed a stitch or anything right away, because you'll notice a large gap in the knitting. And that's all you really need to start knitting. A big chunky yarn and some large knitting needles with 1 point. So here are our knitting materials. We have our large knitting needles and we have our chunky yarn right here. Nice and chunky. Perfect. So before we start knitting anything, we need to learn how to do a slip knot so we can put it onto one of our knitting needles to start the process. So we're going to take our yarn like this, and with the loose end at one side and the yarn ball at the other, we're going to make a loop. And so you're going to take the loose end and loop it over just like that. And with your fingers, you're going to go through the loop to grab the yarn, the loose end yarn, and you're going to pull it through and make a slip knot just like that. Here, I'll show you one more time. So we have our yarn. We're going to take it and make a loop just like that, and then we're going to pull through the yarn to make a slip knot just like that. Perfect. So now that we have our slip knot, we can begin knitting. So you're going to put the slip knot onto your knitting needle and you can tighten it on and it will look like that. So with the slip knot on the needle, this needle is going to go into your left hand or your non-dominant hand because you're going to hold all the stitches onto here while you knit them on. So I am not dominant in my left hand. This is going to be called my left needle. And with my right needle, I'm going to begin casting on stitches. So I take my slip knot and with my right needle, I go underneath the left needle and through the stitch. So under and through, and you can see just like that, I've gone under and through. Perfect. I'll put my yarn on this side of me. And with my right hand, I'm going to take my yarn. I'm going to go behind the right needle and just wrap it around the right needle. All right, so you can see I've just only wrapped it around the right needle. I'll do it again. I go behind the right needle and I wrap it around. Okay, perfect. And so I kind of want to keep this yarn in my right hand just to maintain tension so that my yarn or my knitting does not become too loose. Okay, so with my right needle, I'm going to start going down and I want to catch what I've made. So as you can see, I'm catching that stitch that I had wrapped around. I'm going to do it once more. So here's my knitting, my right needle. I want to catch that piece of yarn. Perfect. Okay, so now I have it like this. I have 2 loops, not finished yet because I need to transfer onto the left. And so I take my left needle and I'm going to go under and through this loop here, under and through, just like that, and I'll remove my right needle. And you can see that we've stitched on another stitch here. Perfect, so let's do the process again. With my right needle, I'm going to go under and through the first stitch here. Under and through. Okay, you can see that I'm through it and under it. With my right yarn, I'm going to go around, under and around the right needle. And now I'm going to start to catch it and pull it through. Okay, so you can see that I've caught it, I've pulled it through, yay. And with my left needle, I'm going to go under and through, just like that. Then I can remove my right needle and release it. So we want to add 8 stitches. So far I have 3, so we're going to do 5 more. I'm going to go through, under and around. I'm going to catch that yarn with the right needle, and with the left needle I'm going to go under and through the stitch and release the right. I'm going to do it again, under and around, catch it with the left needle, under and through. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I still need 3 more. Go through, wrap it around, catch it, and with the left, under and through, release. 2 more to go. Wrap it around, catch it, left, under and through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1 more. So with my right needle, I go through and under. The right yarn goes around the right needle. The right needle comes through and under, grabbing that stitch. Pull it out. With the left needle, I'm going to go under and through. And now you can see that I have casted on 8 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have 8 stitches casted on to my left needle. Now I want to transfer all of these onto my right needle. So I want to get them from here to here. And to do that, we're going to learn what is called a garter stitch. And this is a very basic stitch because it's just a knit stitch. So you only need to know this one stitch to complete the way this is going to look. and it's very similar to the casting on process. So I'm going to take my right needle, I'm going to go under and through the first top stitch there with my right hand. I'm going to take the yarn and I'm going to wrap it around the right needle, and I'm going to take that right needle and go under and catch it. So you see that I have a stitch here, but instead of taking the left needle and transferring it back, I'm going to let the left stitch go. I'm going to release it. So you see I'm going to let this left stitch come off, boom, and now I've transferred it onto my right needle. So you can see it's now on my right needle. We're just going to continue that process over and over. So around the right needle, under and catch, onto the right needle, and release it off of the left, and just keep going. At this point too, you want to also be careful of tension, because you don't want to be too tight or else you can't get the stitches off in the future. So you want to maintain kind of firm but not overly tight knit on these. So just like that. And you see I take my right, go under and around, pull my right needle through, and release it off of the left. Perfect. Just like that. I'm going to do one last one here. Need a little bit more yarn. Okay. And it kind of looks all jumbled up, but if I pull it out to display it a little bit, you can see that it's starting to begin to take on a shape here. Okay, and now this becomes my left needle, or my non-dominant hand needle, and I'm going to continue that process over and over again until I have achieved the length that I like. So I'm going to do this once more, I'm going to do this once more just to show you again the process of how we transfer it to the right needle. Okay, so I'm going to go behind with my right yarn. I'm going to wrap it around. Wrap it around, come under, release it off the left, and just keep doing that until I transferred it back to the right needle again. Alright, and I've transferred it over back to the other needle. And if you start to look closely, you're going to notice that there are these grooves. But I'll show you later on that these grooves are called a garter stitch. And you're going to see there's ridges all across them. Okay, so I have completed a couple more stitches here, and you're going to start to notice kind of a pattern in the stitch. You can see that there are these ridges, and that's really what your garter stitch becomes. It becomes all of these different ridges. So if I pull it a little bit, you can see the ridges are more defined, or like waves. Ridges are waves. And so we're going to continue on doing that, and you can add more stitches along to make it wider if you wanted. We have 8 stitches here. You could add 10 or 11 or however much, depends on the thickness of the scarf that you want. And we're going to carry on doing the exact same thing. We're going to do that knit stitch that we know how to do, and we're going to do it till as long as we feel or like the length of the scarf. So I'm going to show you once more. We're going to go through the knit stitches together one more time, transferring from the left to the right needle. And so we're going to go behind with our right yarn, wrap behind it, and pull it through. And you're also going to notice that the further along you go with it, the easier it becomes. It's a little bit challenging in the beginning just because you're setting up the foundation. But once you get through that piece, it becomes pretty easy to do, and you kind of start to lose yourself in the flow of it or the rhythm of the knitting. And we're just going to keep going. And you see that we're almost done this row. And just like that, last one. And there we go. So once again, we've transferred everything to the right needle, which now becomes our left needle. And you can see the ridges starting to form here. Just keep adding those ridges. Keep doing the knit stitch, and we'll see you kind of closer to the end. So in the next little section, you're going to see a much longer scarf, longer piece of scarf here. So there we go, and we'll carry on our way. Now we've knitted all the way to the end of our scarf, or however long we wish our scarf to be, and now we got to get all of these stitches off the needle or close them. So we need to learn how to cast off. So very easy. We're going to continue with the first 2 stitches. We're going to knit them just like we've been doing this entire time. So 1, 2, all right, so we've knitted those 2 stitches. Now we're going to take the first stitch and we're going to move it over the other stitch. So we're going to take the left needle to help this process along, and we're just going to move that stitch over the other one, and then we have 1 stitch on the right needle, and we're going to continue that process. So we're going to do another stitch here, another knit stitch. We're going to take that left stitch, the stitch closest to you, and we're going to transfer it over the other stitch with the left needle. So we'll do that again like that, and just over it. And so then we have 1 again. We're going to knit another one and do that process until we get to the end. Take that stitch and pull it over to close it. Perfect. Do it again. And just continue pulling that over, and you see we're starting to close off all the stitches. Like that. 2 more. Pull it over. Exactly. Now we're on the last one here. And we're just gonna pull this over it. So you have your last stitch on your right needle here. You've transferred all of your stitches from your left needle onto your right. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take your yarn that you have. If you have a lot of yarn, you're going to need to cut it about 15 inches, so maybe up until that point. But I don't have very much yarn left, so I'm just gonna keep it as is. And so you're gonna take your yarn and you're gonna wrap it around your needle like that. So now I have 2. I'm gonna take that stitch I had before and I'm gonna pull it over the other stitch that I have. So just like that. And I'll pull it through. And this is why you'd want a small amount of yarn, because you have to pull it through. All right, and I've completed my scarf. It's all finished. And then I would just cut off the excess. All right, and you've made your scarf, and it should come out looking somewhat like this using your garter stitch, which are those ridges, or they kind of look like waves too. And you can wear it in different ways. You can wrap it around and wear it double like this, or if you wanted to, you could also pull it through and make it like that. So now you have a nice little scarf that you've made, and you've successfully learned how to cast on, make a knit stitch, and then learn the garter stitch pattern and how to cast off, and ultimately making a scarf. So thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I hope you've learned some new knitting skills, or that you found a new hobby. Thank you so much for listening. Miigwech.